a debate that has been going on under the surface for many, many years, whether or not there is some type of infiltration of Islamic extremists in the conservative movement. And it really came to a head at the CPAC, on CPAC weekend this weekend. David Horowitz, from the podium, made this claim.
The Muslim Brotherhood has been wildly successful in its plan to become part of America's civil culture and to infiltrate the institutions of America's civil governments, including the White House, and both political parties, and the conservative movement as well. Suhail Khan is the proud son of Mahbub Khan and his protege, as he is also the protege of the convicted terrorist Abdurrahman al-Moudi. Suhail has also been made a board member of the American Conservative Union and was the moderator on a panel on religious liberty yesterday at this event. Suhail Khan used his offices in the Bush White House with Grover's support to carry water for the terrorist Sami al-Arian in an attempt to ban the use of secret evidence in terrorist trials. Over the last 10 years, the influence of the Brotherhood has spread throughout our government.
Now, yesterday on the program, we had Suhail Khan and David Horowitz debating this. As you heard, Grover Norquist for Americans for Tax Reform, name was brought up in this as well. Anyway, here's what Suhail said also at the CPAC event.
So what I have a problem with is they say, jihad is their way, martyrdom is their goal. I mean, that is antithetic to everything else.
I understand all of those things.
You got your answers. So.
I understand all of those.
You agree with that too, Mr. Khan?
With what?
That we should be outreaching to the Muslim Brotherhood and
well, the nation is
Muslim Brotherhood in the United States.
There's no Muslim Brotherhood in the United States.
No.
All right, so we decided we're going to try and get to the bottom of this. Frank Gaffney, president of the Center for Security Policy, is with us. Suhail Khan is back, senior fellow, Institute for Global Engagement, and David Horowitz with the Freedom Center. Cleta Mitchell is the chairman of the American Conservative Union Foundation, which is a sponsor of CPAC, and she is actually here. I assume, Cleta, you're representing Grover in this debate because you're familiar with all of this?
Well, I wouldn't want to say that I'm representing Grover. I'm representing...
Okay. Well, Grover couldn't make it. He had something going on. All right.
Grover can represent himself, right?
All right, fair enough. Well, anyway, thank you all for being with us. Appreciate it. Frank, why don't we start with you here? First of all, were you invited to CPAC this year? There was some ambiguity about that, or not invited, or did you boycott it, or what happened?
No, I wasn't invited, and I didn't boycott it. I attended in a capacity as you can relate to, Sean, as a media individual. I witnessed some of the exchanges that you've just talked about, and really, I was, as much as anything, anxious to find out whether people who have been involved with CPAC and the American Conservative Union Board would take to heart concerns that have been expressed by me and many others, by the way, about the direction that the CPAC had been going, and I think that was largely not the case. This is a subset of a larger problem involving Grover Norquist and I think Suhail, but the larger problem shouldn't obscure this particular topic, and if I could just say a word about why I think it's so important that you're taking this on as directly and as seriously as you have, Sean, and that is...
Well, let me say one thing about this, Frank. Frank, this has gone on for years.
Being in this country or working against us, and yet Suhail Khan persists in denying that, and that raises questions about his truthfulness on everything else.
Do you deny that the Muslim Brotherhood is in this country, and Suhail?
I'm a conservative activist who focuses on conservative issues. If there is a Muslim Brotherhood, I'm not aware of it. I don't. To my knowledge, there is no official presence of the Muslim Brotherhood in this country. But that's up to debate. I'll let the experts on the Muslim Brotherhood discuss that. All I know is I'm not part of it. I'm part of ACU. I'm a Reagan conservative who wants to cut taxes and preserve life and have a strong defense. That's what I work on day in and day out. And one of my other projects is religious freedom, promoting religious freedom for all Christians, Jews, and Muslims around the country and around the globe.
All right. It came up yesterday, the issue of the role of your father in terms of connection to the Muslim Brotherhood. You deny that, Suhail?
Absolutely. Absolutely, absolutely. My father was a patriot. There's no connection whatsoever to Muslim Brotherhood. Myself, my mother, my dad never have been to Egypt. This is just ridiculous. You know, Frank used to say I was Al-Qaeda. Then he said I was some type of Saudi operative. Now because the Muslim Brotherhood is in the news, I've become Muslim Brotherhood. Next week I'll be a closet Girl Scout.
He was the founder of the Muslim Students Association?
He was one of many who was involved with the Muslim Student Association in the 60s, correct?
Frank?
Suhail is on video saying he founded it. I mean, come on. There's a real problem with Suhail is such a slippery wherever the truth.
I'm not being slippery, David. I just said he was one of the original people who was part of the Muslim Student Association in the 60s. Absolutely.
Just tape of you saying there is no Muslim Brotherhood in America. That's
not to my knowledge. You know, not to my knowledge. There's not. I know of several Muslim organizations, but I don't know of any Muslim Brotherhood.
It's not an Egyptian organization. This has global influence. The Muslim Brotherhood. Yeah.
This is your conspiracy theory. You and Frank have this stuff straight out of the protocols of the Elders of Zion.
Exercise some control here so that people are not interrupted.
I have another problem with our conversation yesterday, where I referred to a speech you gave, and you said that it was for a speech in front of Muslims, Jews, and Christians, and you were a civil rights advocate, basically. I've looked at the transcript of that speech since yesterday to remind myself. This was a speech given for the Islamic Society of North America, a front of the Muslim Brotherhood.
They are not a front of the Muslim Brotherhood. Karen Hughes spoke at that same conference. Rick Warren spoke at that conference. These are your allegations.
Let me. This is where David. Is this when he said we love death more than you love life? Is that the one you're talking about, David?
It's identified in the Holy Land trial, captured documents by the FBI, but the speech was not about civil rights for everybody. The speech was about the oppression of Muslims by Americans, and what Suhail said is that we prefer death more than they love life.
I have that clip. Let me play it so everyone can hear it.
Our freedoms, my dear brothers and sisters, the earliest defenders of Islam would defend their more numerous and better equipped oppressors because the early Muslims loved death, dying for the sake of Almighty Allah, more than the oppressors of Muslims love life. This must be the case when we are fighting life's other battles. What are our oppressors going to do with people like us? We're prepared to give our lives for the cause of Islam. I have pledged my life's work, inspired by my dear father's shining legacy and inspired further by my mother's loving protection and support, to work for the Ummah.
And the importance is we love death more than you love life. Can you explain that, Suhail?
I can explain that. First, this was before 9/11. It is language I wouldn't have used post 9/11. But but this was in the context of using examples of Dr. Martin Luther King, who gave his life fighting oppression. I talked about Rosa Parks. David knows that if you look at the entire speech. I talked about people who were willing to give their life to fight oppression. I talked about hunger. I talked about poverty. I was talking to a group of Christian Muslims and Jews in the audience. It was an interfaith group about how we should not just be stuck at living materialistic lives, but we should try to strive to live a faithful life towards working for others. It was not
hang on, let's go on. Frank Gaffney is next. Frank, go ahead.
You cannot twist
There's an objective reality here.
To twist the language into something that is extolling some type of, support for the suicide bombing or something like that.
All right, guys, we got to do one at a time. Let me go through the words. The earliest defenders of Islam would defend their more numerous and better equipped oppressors because the early Muslims loved death, dying for the sake of Almighty Allah more than the oppressors of Muslims loved life. This must be the case when we are fighting life's other battles. What are oppressors going to do with people like us? We are prepared to give our lives for the cause of Islam. I have pledged my life's work, inspired by my dear father's shining legacy and inspired further by my mother's loving protection and its support, et cetera, et cetera. Frank Gaffney, how do you interpret that?
There are objective realities here. Suhail Khan denies facts that have been demonstrated in court with respect to the organizations that constitute the Muslim Brotherhood's apparatus in America, several of which his parents founded. He says that they founded them. He agrees that they were part of them. He simply chooses to dissemble, deceive, and I think, frankly, demonstrate his truthlessness by saying that they have nothing to do with the Muslim Brotherhood when the United States government has demonstrated in a court of law that's the case. And when he goes on to say that he's actually representing his remarks at this Islamic Society of North America Muslim Brotherhood Front organization as some kind of ecumenical, appeal to yuppies to get engaged.
That's what it was.
It's rubbish.
All right, let me let Cleta get in here and respond. She hasn't spoken yet. Go ahead.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to be here, and I'll preface this by saying that I've said these very things to Frank and to David at CPAC, because I think the work that, in particular, that Frank is doing with regard to alerting the United States and the people of the United States to the threat of Islamic extremism is hugely important, and I don't dismiss that in any way whatsoever. What I am concerned about is what I believe to be personal attacks on Suhail Khan, which essentially are guilt by association from one speech that he gave in 1999. And subsequent to that, as I've said to Frank and to David, subsequent to that speech, Suhail was in the White House. He worked in the Bush White House. He had a security clearance from the Bush White House and the United States government. And it's hard for me to fathom, frankly, that Suhail would be an operative of Muslim extremists working in the White House with a security clearance.
All right, let me ask, Cleta, do you have any concerns about what we just played from of Suhail from that 1999 speech? Let me play another cut from this. This is 2-7, Greg, where he was also speaking back again in 1999.
Our freedoms, my dear brothers and sisters, are under attack. Our freedom to associate with whomever we so choose, to speak out politically and religiously, to travel, to practice our faith as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has instructed us as God-fearing men and women, must be protected. And these rights must be defended with all the determination, all the resources, all the unyielding vigilance of the believing mujahid.
It's Mujahideen, I assume, is the last word there. Got cut off. Is that what it was?
I guess the thing I would say about this, Sean, is that let's stop and think what it is we're trying to accomplish here. Are we trying to let's say that Frank and David were successful in saying Suhail can no longer attend conservative meetings and we're going to throw him out of any conservative meeting. Then what? All I'm doing, this has been percolating now for years. You agree with that, right? I don't disagree with that. And
okay, hang on a second. So I figured, why don't we bring everybody together and air out what the difference is here? And I just played 2 cuts of Suhail. Do any of those comments concern you?
I don't think that they concern me in the sense that subsequent to those comments, people who had a lot more resources and information than I.
So they kind of concern you in terms of what he's saying, but they don't concern you because he got a security clearance later.
Well, I think that there isn't there a statute of limitations? Isn't there also the context in which these comments were made? Suhail has said that given the realities of post 9/11, he would not have used that same language.
Yeah. Can I address that, Sean? Yeah. I mean, Suhail, you've asked a rhetorical question, I guess, Cleta. But what is at stake here? I believe, is an influence operation that is consistent with the ones that are being run against the U.S. government by the Muslim Brotherhood in all kinds of other ways. And if you want to find out more about those, check out Sharia, The Threat to America.
This is just Frank trying to sell his books and make money. Come on. SuhailKhanExposed.com is another great
resource. Don't jam me, Suhail. This is a message to Cleta Mitchell and to conservatives more generally listening to Sean Hannity's show. Get the facts. The facts are that the process by which security clearances are given, as we've seen with 30 or so czars under this administration, and I'm sorry to say under previous administrations, is broken. And we do not see people screened out who should be. Suhail Khan's parents, and not just this speech, but his ongoing relationship with Muslim Brotherhood organizations and activities and agendas should have kept him out of the United States government. It is a travesty that he should not be in the conservative movement today.
When we come back, the New York Post had once reported about Al-Moody that he had stated, if we're outside this country, we can say, oh, Allah, destroy America. And we have him on tape saying anybody a supporter of Hamas, anybody a supporter of Hezbollah. So we're going to get into that when we get back, and we'll talk about the relationship that Suhail has with Al-Moody and much more as the Sean Hannity Show continues.
The grown-ups are back in charge. Stay in touch with the Hannity faithful. Join the message board at Hannity.com.
All right, as we roll along, 800-941-SEAN is our toll-free telephone number. You want to be a part of the program. Now, if we go to Abdul Rahman Al-Moody, then head of the American Muslim Council, here is him on tape praising Hamas and Hezbollah.
Anybody is a supporter of Hamas here? Hear that, Bill Clinton? We are all supporters of Hamas. Allahu Akbar. I wish they added that I'm also a supporter of Hezbollah. Anybody supports Hezbollah here? Anybody supports Hezbollah here?
All right, in 1998, Al-Moody, the New York Post reports, said that, had stated, if we're outside this country, we can say, oh, Allah, destroy America, at a pro-Hamas convention in Chicago. At an anti-Israeli event outside the White House in the year 2000, Al-Moody openly voiced support for Hamas and Hezbollah, which is what you just heard here. Suhail, let me ask you this, because Al-Moody speaks and praises you, and I believe this was in 2001, giving you an award.
Suhail Khan is the son of a dear, dear brother who was a pioneer of Islam work himself. Many of you know his late father, may Allah bless him, who was part of all kinds of work. And alhamdulillah, Suhail inherited from his father not only being a Muslim and a Muslim activist, but also being a Muslim political activist.
Now, he was known before you received this award as having said all these outrageous statements. Did you not know that at the time?
I didn't know it, and the White House apparently didn't know it when they sent me to that event, Sean. I have no relationship with Al-Moody. I had no relationship with Al-Moody. The White House would send me to 8, 9, 10 events a day, and that was one of them. I went, I received the award, and I went back to my office.
Sean.
And I really think it's important here, frankly, as I've said to both David and to Frank, I think that the concern that they have should be directed at the Bush White House and not at Suhail. And I have sat and I've read the things. I've read the chapter that on the Muslim Brotherhood in Frank's book. I think that it's very disconcerting. I mean, it's very disturbing. The information. I mean, I believe that Frank is documenting the threat from
Cleta, can I ask you a question? Because Al-Moody had said all these things, praising his support for Hamas, Hezbollah, saying, oh, Allah, destroy America. Hang on a second. Before he gave Suhail the award, and are you saying that Suhail bears no responsibility in knowing who Al-Moody was?
No, I actually think
one of the richest men in the world, Al-Moody.
Sent him.
Nobody in the Muslim community would not know, certainly not at Suhail's level, would not know who Al-Moody was. I'm really surprised, Cleta. I mean, and let me say, I am very fond of Cleta Mitchell, and she's done wonderful work for the conservative movement. But how can you have, you say he got clearance? Well, Al-Moody was appointed, what was he? He picked all the Muslim military chaplains for the U.S. Army.
And the prison
Major
system.
Hassan was promoted to major from captain after telegraphing to the whole world that he was a terrorist and being in touch, internationally with
that has nothing to do with me, David. That has nothing to do with me.
This is the problem. Our government has been penetrated. Our intelligence have a director of intelligence who says that the Muslim Brotherhood is a secular organization, which is insanity. And he's still in the post. And Suhail's presence and his acceptance by the conservative movement
hang on one second.
Advances this whole battle. And let me just say about Suhail and that speech, that whole speech was about America's oppression of Muslims, and the oppression was searching them at airports.
That is false,
the oppression was the security measures we have taken.
David, do you have a copy of the speech? Because I don't have a copy.
Sean, it is available for everybody to look at Suhail Khan.
All right, guys. All right, slow down. We got to stop you here because nobody can hear a thing. All right, but let me just go back because I think Cleta and David are actually agreeing on a point here. Based on what we know about Al-Amoudi and all the things he said prior to 2000, I think, Cleta, you bring up a good point. I think it's been reiterated here by David. How did Al-Amoudi have these connections? And similarly, then Suhail's connection to this. Why is Suhail hanging out with Al-Amoudi? Cleta, we'll let you go next.
Well, what Suhail says is that he was sent to the meeting as one of his duties from the White House. So my question is, I mean, look,
But he was being praised by Al-Amoudi, who was on record as saying he supports Hamas, Hezbollah, and saying, "Oh, Allah destroy America."
Look, all I am saying is that I do not disagree that these are serious and real threats to the United States. I do not disagree with that. What I have not seen is I have not seen any evidence that I would consider to be actual evidence of something Suhail has done that is other than this speech that I think has been to some degree taken out of context. But I have not seen evidence that would convince me that Suhail is somehow a threat. I heard Suhail say
when he said I want to go back to this though, Cleta. When he said we are prepared to give our lives for the cause of Islam, isn't that the very thing we hear radicals say?
I don't think that is what I heard him say.
That is what he said.
I could play it again.
And Sean.
No, but Sean, that's what I'm saying is that people need to give their lives towards faith. I wasn't talking about giving their lives in the way of extremism.
People can hear with their own ears.
Let me play it again. This is cut 2. Let me play it again.
The earliest defenders of Islam would defend their more numerous and better equipped oppressors because the early Muslims loved death, dying for the sake of Almighty Allah, more than the oppressors of Muslims love life. This must be the case when we are fighting life's other battles. What are our oppressors going to do with people like us? We're prepared to give our lives for the cause of Islam. I have pledged my life's work, inspired by my dear father's shining legacy and inspired further by my mother's loving protection and support, to work for the Ummah.
We love death more than you love life. That has been said by many well-known extremists. If I remember correctly, I think Osama bin Laden even said that. Now, Suhail, that sounds extraordinarily extreme to me and sympathetic towards an extremist viewpoint. It just sounds it.
Let me explain two things. First, that you're right. Extremists use that language because it's something that they want to try and resonate with Muslim audiences. But in that instance, if you read the entire speech again, I was talking about people like Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King. They are mentioned in that speech, early African slaves, and I was talking about giving one's life towards faith, and that's why I said I've given my life towards community service.
But that's not what you said. Hang on a second. I'm not trying to be nitpicky here. Suhail, hang on a second. You said we are prepared to give our lives for the cause of Islam.
Yeah.
Right.
Sean,
right.
May I add a word
in this instance,
Sean,
look, I'm a devout Muslim.
Sean,
I believe
may I get a word in here, please?
I should be working towards solving hunger, towards
you've heard this disinformation several times.
All right, hang on. All right, let's go to Frank.
May I get a word in here?
Frank, please don't interrupt. If you look at the entire...
I'm tired of hearing you repeat this again and again and again. It's not true no matter how many times you say it. I am an expert on the Muslim Brotherhood. Nobody else seems to want to say they are. Cleta says she values my work. I'm telling you, Sean Hannity and your audience, what you've been hearing from Suhail Khan is taqiyya. It is disinformation on behalf of the faith. It is designed
designed to mislead, and to the extent that Cleta has not wanted to see what is been done by Suhail Khan within our movement on a continuing basis as evidence of the Muslim Brotherhood's classic influence operations, I regret to say that I think she's missing it. But it's there for people to see. Go to SuhailKhanExposed.com. Check out Sharia, the Threat to America. You can find out for yourself. Don't take it from anybody else. Make your own judgment. But I'm convinced when you see the facts, including a briefing that has these quotes and these videos in it, you're going to come to the same conclusion.
Right, now let's go one at a time. David Horowitz, you're next, and then Cleta.
Okay. If you look at that speech from 1999, the speech is about the oppression. It's not about civil rights. He does mention Rosa Parks, but it's to appropriate the moral mantle of the civil rights movement for a cause which is to stop America from protecting itself against Muslim radicals.
Exactly.
The whole speech it's about airport security. It's about Muslims are singled out. You mentioned terrorists in the
secret
same
evidence
universe as Muslim, and then you're anti-Muslim. This is the Brotherhood line. Everybody who warns about the terrorist threat from Islamic radicals is anti-Muslim. He had at a panel at CPAC on Friday, Eli Biari, who protested. This was his Muslim representative. This is a Muslim extremist who protested the conviction of the Holy Land Foundation for funding Hamas as the American government's suppression of civil liberties. The communists on the left at the ACLU always talk about civil liberties, but what they defend is terrorists and anti-Americans. It's the same language. And, as I said it at CPAC, if you are a member of such a movement, and the idea that Suhail was just a visitor to the Islamic Society of North America, of which his father was one of the founders, is absurd. But if you have been part of this and you actually understand or disagree with its destructive agendas, then you make part of your mission warning people about that.
All right, let's go to Cleta.
Suhail for 10 years has carried on the Muslim Brotherhood line, the fact that they use deception or they talk in terms of civil rights. That's what communists do too. Peace, jobs, and democracy. So,
all right, let me go to Cleta, David.
Founded by conservatives not grasping this.
Cleta,
it's completely false. That's why.
Cleta's next. Cleta, go ahead, and then.
Well, look, there's no one who is a more staunch supporter and defender of Israel than I. I mean, I believe that we have to fight Muslim extremists. And I asked Suhail, and he said he believes Hamas is a terrorist organization. He said that these terrorist organizations must be investigated and prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law.
Absolutely.
Would he be lying to you, Cleta, about that, like he's lying about so much else?
He hasn't done diddly squat about opposing Hamas in this country or anywhere else, and he's on record as talking about the oppression of Muslims in Israel. And Muslims have more rights in Israel than they do throughout the Muslim world.
I just led a delegation of faith leaders, including 8 prominent American Muslim leaders,
Muslim Brotherhood operatives,
Dachau, working with
Muslim Brotherhood operatives
to fight anti-Semitism, to fight Holocaust.
All right, hang on, guys.
I work with rabbis every day.
Guys, hang on. All right, let me get in here. All right, Suhail, let me go back to the Al-Amoudi issue. Al-Amoudi voices his support for Hamas and Hezbollah, and you meet with him, and this is after he had been known to be an extremist, and you're saying you knew nothing of this.
Known by the White House. I did not know that. I did not know Al-Amoudi, and I did not know that when I went. I was simply sent.
So when he says he knew your father, he knew your father, but not you?
The White House faith at this event. So there's no connection there, Sean. You can keep bringing it up, but there is no connection to me and Al-Amoudi, period.
Well, I'm just saying because he did give you the award and he said that. All right, Cleta Mitchell, Frank Gaffney, David Horowitz, Suhail Khan, we're just out of time. I want to thank you all for being with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you for taking this so seriously, Sean.
All right, we're going to come back on Liberal Only Calling Hour coming up in the next